She's muted now, too.
You shouldn't have to unmute, though.
She's muted. You're muted.
Everybody's muted. Joe, you're muted,
Hey, Joe,
too.
how are you?
Oh, there she is.
There we go.
Hi, Darcy.
There she is.
Can you hear us, Darcy?
You're muted. We're muted.
No, we shouldn't. His computer.
She should be able to hear us through the
Speakers.
speakers and the,
He just,
Zoom.
Doing this again.
she could hear us last week when we were doing this.
Is Bill still here?
yes,
What was it that we did last time? Do you remember?
He didn't tell us.
No, he's here. He's here.
Clark's name up there and Kevin Kaminsky's is not.
oh, I don't know, maybe
Her
they're
computer, maybe?
on
If
on
Kevin's
one
on
person,
Maureen's computer, it might be.
Yeah.
Maybe Kevin's on Maureen's computer.
Yeah, yeah.
That
or-
could be it.
He
He can go
sets
in and
it.
change the name, but that's just the computer he's on. It's identified as her computer, but I don't see him.
Darcy, can you hear us?
I was going to ask if anybody can hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
But can you hear us? Can,
I can hear, yeah, I can hear you.
Good. All right. All right.
We were thinking you couldn't
should
hear
we
us.
Go in here, Joe?
It sounds like we should get going, Mr. Chairman.
You know what's really funny is Joe's microphone has the X on it, like it's not on. So you must be using two different devices.
It's not supposed to be
Yeah, we're using
on.
the microphones in the room.
Yeah.
it's
That
a
makes sense.
special thing.
So I would like to call the Tuesday, July 6th, 2021 Board of Select Board meeting to order. And so I hope everyone had a good 4th of July weekend. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
All right, so we'll go through our announcements and board openings. Our Finance and Advisory Committee, our FinCom, has 1 opening and 2 associate openings. Conservation Commission has 1 opening. The Hamilton Historic District Commission has 1 opening. ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, has 1 opening. Our Open Space Committee has 2 openings. And the Hamilton Planning Board has 1 associate member opening. So please reach out to Joe if you are interested in joining those committees. There's a small form you need to fill out, and hopefully we get some volunteers. The next part of our meeting is for public comment. 3 minutes on topics not already on the agenda. So I recognize Peter Britton. If you stand up, say your name and your address.
I'm Peter Britton, 466 Highland Street, and I've been in extensive discussion with Kevin Kaminsky, who is the curator of state property at 550 Highland Street.
All right, Peter, 1 second. We got to give you a microphone. Sorry about that. Thanks, Joe. You can start over, sorry. Take 2.
Okay. I'm Peter Britton, 466 Highland Street, and I've been, over the years, in extensive discussion with Kevin Kaminsky, who is a curator of state property at 550 Highland Street under a program organized by a DCR and authorized by the legislature of the Commonwealth. He has, whether you have all had a chance to see it or not, the Board of Assessors imposed a property tax 13 years ago or so. And by the time Kevin Kaminsky and his wife, Maureen Clark, discovered that what was going on and suspended payment of taxes, they had paid Hamilton $13,256.07 of what the treasurer of the town of Hamilton declared to be invalid. In roughly October of 2020, the lien that was imposed by the town of Hamilton by Capola and Capola, the law firm, was lifted largely because of the passage of the Home Rule petition. I have a very polite and informative letter here issued by Chairman Bill Olson. While we don't feel that there is any fraud here, we're interested in coming to resolution on this item. We instructed our town council to reach out to the Kaminskis directly on a few options. I will check in with them this week to see if they have heard back our offer. I want to reiterate, we instructed our town council, to the knowledge of Kevin Kaminski and his wife Maureen, there has been no attempt by town council to communicate at all with them. There have been no options that have been placed before them to examine or to pass on to their attorney. So I say on reasonably good authority that the only option, I repeat, the only option before the town, and in this case particularly the Board of Selectmen, who are empowered to refund these taxes in full. If you read the Selectmen's Handbook, you will find that reclassification of property is one of your powers. So to go from being improperly a legitimate property that can be taxed to an illegitimate or invalid taxation event, I would say is within your power. And I urge you to vote as soon as possible to issue a check for $13,256.07 to Kevin Kaminski and Maureen Clark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. I mean, we worked very hard as a board here for the past few years to work on a special act with the state house to change how we were taxing the property and to alleviate unpaid taxes. The next step obviously is to take care of taxes that were paid. I assure you that what I wrote in the letter is true and accurate, and we will continue to work on it to make sure we get resolution. But it's true and accurate what was in that email I sent to you, and they have contacted us to confirm such. So we will continue to work on it, Peter. It's important to us to resolve it, and thank you for bringing it to our attention again.
Look forward to your response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Selectmen and town manager reports. We'll start with Sean, if you got anything during.
With the holidays and everything, no, I don't actually have anything other than it's been a little rainy lately. That's about it.
Rosemary, anything to add?
Yes, I do. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, very exciting, we had the first in-person meeting of the Master Plan Steering Committee last Thursday. The first, and we're planning for another one this Thursday, the 8th. Great group of people, well-informed, energetic, very, very good group. And FYI, we elected Jack Lawrence as the chair of this committee and Kristen Kasner as the vice chair. We will, this week, very likely vote to elect a treasurer who will keep an eye on the expenses, and perhaps a clerk. But it's a very active group, lots of energy. I'm so happy to be part of it. The next thing is that the Conservation Commission had a meeting last week, and the big subject at hand was the 133 Essex Street project. The issue was how to present their request for approval by the Conservation Commission. There was some discussion as to how that should be presented, and the discussion is ongoing. And there was lots of information both from the developer's attorney and from abutters. So it was a very fair opportunity for everybody's voice to be heard. There'll be another meeting next week on the 14th, I believe it is. And this Friday, there's going to be another site walk of the Conservation Commission. So looking forward to joining that. And then just as nothing has been done about this yet, but I'm very excited to announce that I'm going to be organizing and presented by the Board of Selectmen in conjunction with the Council on Aging. There'll be a senior citizen garden party at the Patton Homestead on Saturday, August 14th. And have been out there twice already. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. I talked to Mark Shaw, who was out there today. We have some really exciting plans and looking forward to inviting all of the senior citizens in Hamilton. We will make special accommodation for those who are unable to walk independently, but we're bound and determined to honor our senior citizens. So that's it for me.
Been very busy, Rosie, thank you.
Is
Even on an
there a
awfully-
date on that? Did I?
August 14th.
August 14th.
Yes.
Is there a time? Yet?
It's 2 or 2:30.
Okay.
And we will have some selectmen, some other selectmen who have volunteered to do various things, and our own Sean Farrell has volunteered to be a waiter. Bravo. And anybody else who would like to help out, please do join us. We want to pay tribute to our wonderful, wonderful, energetic seniors.
Thank you. Jamie, anything from you?
I do not have anything to report.
Darcy?
Yes, first of all, before it leaves my head, I don't think we took attendance. I don't know if we need to take attendance or not, but I just thought I'd mention that. The other thing is, yes, I will be helping with the tea. I'm doing the flowers.
Yes, you are.
And I really didn't have too much, so I'll let it go at that.
Okay. Mine will be short and sweet, but Joe, do we need to do, since it's a hybrid meeting, do we need to do a roll call?
You're essentially a live meeting with a virtual component, so
Okay.
you're here, you can see that you had a quorum, so.
Okay,
you're good.
very good, thanks, Darcy. The only thing I had, obviously, with the school, sort of school updates, most people are aware that our superintendent has announced a retirement, given us a 90-day notice, which would be October 1st from around July 1st. And then also, we're going to talk about the school agreement, so we invited Dana to join us, and
That's on
Have it.
the school dam is on the bottom, so.
yeah, so we can maybe move that up just because Dana is here and use good use of her time. So, so when we get to that, we will move that up to the top of the agenda. That is all I had. And then Joe, I saw your town manager report.
Yeah, I had
Included with pictures and everything. So I don't know if you want to share anything you need to share on that for our meeting today, but.
Trying to share my screen, I think. Sorry, excuse me. Got it in the wrong place here. Here, this way here, people can see if the camera picks it up, you can see the town manager report. Main thing I want to talk about is that the Council on Aging Board of Directors volunteered to host a cookout for our seniors on June 30th down at the Senior Center. They had about 50 people show up. As you can see, it was a pretty good event. It was catered from an outfit out of Salem called Salem Gnu Catering, I believe. And the Council on Aging has been really doing a great job the last couple of months, volunteering to keep the Senior Center open with some drop-in hours to allow the seniors to socialize. We are currently looking for a part-time Council on Aging outreach and program coordinator. That position is posted on the town website, so if anybody wants to apply for it, they can find the job posting under the Human Resources Department. I also wanted to announce that we settled 2 contracts with our unions just right before the deadline. Before June 30th, DPW and the Emergency Dispatchers Unions both settled with the towns. We did our best I want to thank the members of the unions for working collaboratively with the town to find a fair agreement that maintains fiscal restraint. And want to announce a couple of retirements. Chief among them, Rick Campana, was the town mechanic for 38 years. So he left our employ on June 30th after a very long run here. He was very well-liked guy, very good at his job. He could work on just about anything that had an engine or a motor, and he was very difficult to replace. He helped us in finding his successor. We hired away a mechanic from another community, and Eddie's joining with both feet and has taken over. Rick told me on his last day that we're in really good hands with Eddie, so we're appreciative of that. But that just fills in the part of him being a mechanic. It doesn't fill in kind of the way he interacted with the guys in the department and all that he's done for the town over the years, so we definitely want to say thanks to Rick. Mary Beth Lawton has retired, and our Director of Assessors, John Spidell, has moved on to become the Chief Assessor in Billerica, and our Health Agent, Leslie Welling, left the town on June 30th. As you know, in the new budget, we created a Health Director position. We are in the process of filling that now. It's advertised, and we've had some applicants already. And I don't know whether...
Yeah, I'm going to,
Yeah. Can you not hear me?
may I just say, I'm getting feedback from people. They can't hear. It's very muddled sounding. I don't know if it's with the microphones or I'm just not sure, but I've gotten information from people who are watching it that it's really hard to hear.
Is that just since I started talking because I wasn't sitting forward? Is it better now?
Well, it seems to be a little bit better now. Can you say,
I think
say a little
we need
more?
to talk into our microphones.
Yes, I will do a better job of talking into my microphone. Hopefully that will help. The last thing from my report, there's more, and it'll be posted on the town website tomorrow, but the last thing I'd just like to say is that the Hamilton-Wenham Human Rights Coalition hosted a pride picnic on June 27th out at the Patton Homestead. We had about 400 people show up. It was a great event. It was very well attended, very popular. People loved it. And that makes 2 events in June. As we get ready to head into July, we'll have weekend events out at the homestead every weekend, every Saturday for the rest of the month. So that's all. I'll stop short my report there.
Great. And that is on one of the things on the consent agenda is a event at Patton Homestead. So we move on to the consent agenda. So there are 4 things on the consent agenda. One is approved minutes of the June 7th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting and hearing. Approve request for a 1-day liquor license for the Patton Homestead event. Approve request for 1-day liquor license for community house event, and approve declare surplus goods at the Council on Aging, which Joe had put together. So I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
I may have to, can we, on the June 7th meeting, I don't think I can vote on that because I wasn't there.
Okay,
So let's separate that one from the bunch, if that's all right with everybody.
that's fine.
You want to amend a motion to approve 3 of those items?
Yeah, Darcy, if it's okay, I'll amend your motion. I'll make a motion to approve all items besides the minutes of
Minutes.
June 7th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting and hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
And remind me we did again. We have to do a roll call vote because of.
No, we don't.
We're in person now.
No, we're
Okay,
good.
So, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? There's a 5-0.
Right,
In
and then I'll
favor.
throw out the motion for the minutes, even though I can't vote on it, but I move that we approve the minutes of the June 7th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting and hearing.
And second.
Second.
We have a second from Rosie, and all those, and any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And
All
one
those-
abstention.
1 abstention, so we have 4 ayes and 1 abstention.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to rework the agenda to talk about discussion of the regional school agreement update. So I'll frame that discussion quickly, and then we can sort of talk about it amongst ourselves, and then we can get some input from Dana. So we had talked about a few months ago, we looked at the school agreement, and it had been sort of an original agreement that had been amended a few years ago, and it's been a number of years since it's been looked at, and there's some things that we thought that we'd want to put into it. Now, the discussion will will be a very long discussion back and forth with the school and Wenham and et cetera. What I want to talk about today is sort of the process, is sort of us trying to develop a process that we think would work to be successful, because I don't really want to get into, I'm sure we all have 5, 10 items that we want to put on the discussion, but what I was hoping we could talk today is about process, so we could bring what we thought was a good process to Town of Wenham, to the school board committee. And so that's really what the idea tonight was, to talk about the process, how we see it happening, how we work separately, collaboratively, who needs to be in, if it's just these 3 boards, if there's other steering committees we want as part of it, and who we want. So I'll open it up with that, and I sort of I'm gonna go around the room and sort of get your opinion on process. So, and I know Darcy and I have talked about it at length, so I know she's obviously very interested in doing in rewriting this update. I talked with Dana about it briefly, and I felt that really high level processes that make sense for us to sort of, everybody has to agree. So I think, Joe, you said that in the agreement it says that all parties have to agree to so I don't know,
Right.
The formality of that is you have to have a meeting, vote on it.
Right, I think the first part of the process is just agreeing that we're gonna alter it, I guess, right? We gotta get to that point first.
Right. So I want to make the best use of my time. So we're not voting anything tonight. Tonight's just a discussion. But if we want to get on another meeting agenda, we would have to just figure out what the verbiage of that was. And it doesn't matter who goes first. It doesn't matter if it's us or Wenham and what time frame it needs to be. But I think it's pretty easy to open it up, the discussion at some point. And then sort of the process is what do we think? I think that we need to come together and have a few meetings, talk about everything that we want to change, or that we think needs further discussion, or that we think needs to be changed, amended, or discussed. So we had made a list, I think, because when did we talk about it? We talked about it
In the fall.
in the fall.
Yeah,
fall.
probably.
And so I made a list. I have a list. And so the question, we come up with our list, and maybe whether we talk about it internally and we sort of narrow it down, or we just throw everything. We come up with 30 or 40 items and throw everything up there, and then we sort of and I want every sort of committee to do that. So the school board does Wenham does their thing, and then we sort of have to have a whiteboard discussion, have a joint meeting, and sort of throw everything up there.
Right, and then we kind of start with the overlaps, right? So
Start with the overlaps, right?
May I suggest that perhaps what we should do, one of the first things we should do is reach out to our counterparts in Wenham, because we are the entities that provide the income that the school uses for their revenue. So it seems to me the 2 towns need to talk before we can bring anything to the school. I think if we can all get on the same page, we can all decide what kind of guardrails we want to put up to protect the towns, and to also make sure that there's security for the schools so that they know what they're going to get every single year, instead of this mad scramble every ATM, STM for dollars that aren't even there sometimes. It just seems to me if we can come together with the 2 towns, then we can bring something to the school board. And I think also just showing solidarity and that we're all on the same page, because it's really critical. We're at a really critical time. This 1959 agreement is a relic of the last century, and we really have to take a hard look at it. There are so many things that are different now than they were back then, and I just think this is a great opportunity. We should seize it with both hands and see how far we can go with it. But I think my gut feeling is that we should sit down with our counterparts in Wenham, because that's where the money comes from.
Agreed. And the timing of it is important too, because we're doing our master plan right now. So the question is, can our master plan help inform this, or can it be concurrent? Does it have to be sequential?
right.
Yep.
I don't know, Rosie, if you have a feeling, how to frame that discussion about the master plan and how that will help inform maybe part of the agreement.
Yeah, well, actually, one good thing is that Dana is a member of the Master Plan Steering Committee, so we expect that the schools will be involved to some degree in that, of course. I think the regional agreement is a whole separate issue, because that's just finances and structure and accountability. That seems very different than the master plan. I don't know if, and anybody, the issues seem different to me. Boy, it's a, ugh. I agree with Darcy that this original agreement, which was updated in 2010 and then amended again and briefly in 2014, that it is a relic. It was a different time, different, people had different goals. And I think that initially I thought maybe we should just look through this agreement piece by piece, and then I thought, well, maybe we need to do some research on other more current school agreements, regional agreements, and look at some of the critical factors that they have included in their agreements. I was surprised to see that there are some things in this agreement that, in all honesty, and not, certainly will not bring them up, but some of those things have not been followed through on, and I'm concerned about that. It seems like there's not been a whole lot of team effort in this agreement. So, although I'm very happy that Dana's part of the master planning committee, we don't even have a framework yet to guide us on what we're going to be discussing regarding the schools, how much of that conversation will be relevant to their regional agreement. I'm guessing that they're going to be fairly separate, but that's our plan for this coming Thursday, is to work on a broad framework.
Yeah, no, I agree they're separate. I just was curious if one would help maybe inform the other.
Oh, I'm
But,
sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now, unfortunately, since we put this on the agenda 2 weeks ago, the superintendent retired.
right.
And so the time that the school board may have had to work on this over the next year,
Right.
they're going to be focusing on a solution for a superintendent, long-term solution, whatever that is, whether it's interim or permanent. So we have to be sensitive of that as well, too, because this is going to be a lot of work, a lot of effort. So, so I was hoping that sort of we had some stability and we would be able to do this. But Dana can give her opinion if she thinks what the timing will be and the commitment they can make to it. What other, so, I mean, Joe, I sort of got into it quickly, not thinking about all the people at home who are listening, maybe not heard this before. But can you give a quick sort of framework on some people might not know what this agreement is, because we haven't talked about it a lot, but what's the sort of the framework of the agreement, how it works? So three parties signed it.
Yeah, 3 parties that signed it. The agreement established the regional school committee and the regional school district under state law at the time. It essentially lays out how the committee will, the district rather, will operate. And it lays out in a very rudimentary way how the 2 towns are assessed for the share of the budget. It doesn't, in modern vernacular, consider the Education Reform Act of 1993. It doesn't consider changes to voting laws and voter registration, whereby currently the school committee members pull papers at the school superintendent's office, not at the town clerk's offices where they should be, and that's not consistent with current
Right.
practice and state law. So there are a number of different things in the agreement that should be modified. There is absolutely the opportunity to work with the school committee to determine, as Darcy referred to, guardrails, or as we've talked, Dana and I have talked in the past about just providing predictability to the budgeting process for the school department as well as for the towns, as opposed to kind of just being given a bill that we have to try to figure out how to pay. And then that would be more recognizing the fact that the school department, though it's separate, is a part of the 2 towns, and therefore needs to be considered as a part of the whole of the 2 towns operating going forward. Dana and I did talk about this afternoon, when we were meeting with the new town administrator, Ryan Ferrara, in Wenham, and I think we're in agreement, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, that yes, it's going to be a big lift for the school committee to have to figure out a way forward with a new superintendent, but it doesn't necessarily behoove us to just kick this can down the road either. So I think that
Right.
there should be a way for us to all work together on both things. I think that the school committee has to talk about what its process is going to be and what they want to do for a superintendent. Dana may be able to offer some insight into what that might be. And I think that, you know, we had agreed prior to town meeting, you remember we had the 5 chairs meeting, so the chairs of both the FinComs and Board of Selectmen in both towns and the chair of the school committee all met to kind of get on the same page as far as the budget process went for this year. We had initially agreed to meet again at the end of June, beginning of July, but with all the changes that went on in Wenham, as far as 2 new members of the Board of Selectmen, now a new incoming town administrator, we had by email agreed to push that off till August. Dana and I agreed today that I'll be asking to initiate that again for probably after the school committee meeting on August 19th, which would give us some time to consider what they'll do at their school committee on the 19th. So, you know, I think that would be a good first step to reopening this discussion as well. But the current agreement does say that, you know, all 3 parties have to agree to reopen the agreement. And that's probably why you've never really fully invested in reopening it, because people have reopened it with contingencies in the past. Well, we'll reopen it and just talk about this part. We'll reopen it and just talk about this part.
When was the last time it was,
I know there was an amendment to it in 2014, but it was very,
There was
narrow
just
amendment.
very, I think 2010, 2014 were just kind of housekeeping things. I mean,
Okay.
minor housekeeping things. The last time it was actually opened,
I think it was 1972.
I-
when you
yeah, I
added
think it was
the
72 or
added the
something like
elementary
that.
schools. I think elementary schools were added in 72, and that was the.
that was the last time it was actually officially open for kind
That
of
was
a,
20 years before education reform.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
probably about time that we take a look at it.
and then sort of what our process in terms of, is it just gonna be the 5 or 6 of us having discussion, or do we wanna have, you know, a steering committee? Because obviously FinCom's gonna be an important part of it. So as we get into sort of the framework of it, we wanna make sure it's not just the 5 of us discussing. We wanna make sure we go a wider range of representatives sort of helping
Yeah.
us with our ideas.
I would think we need some kind of a subcommittee. Like, I kind of just jotted down, you know, I think maybe it starts with either some kind of a formal letter to the Wenham BOS or some kind of a joint meeting where we talk about it and agree that we're both on the same page with wanting to reopen it. And then we approach the school committee as the last party. And then hopefully they agree, and then we're kind of off and running. And then it's maybe talking, like you said, subcommittees with Board of Selectmen, FinComs, things like that. I also had, when we were talking about the master plan earlier, I don't think, you know, to some point it doesn't affect master planning, but at the same time, it probably does, because we're looking at new school buildings at some point. And then that ratio of really just Bucher and Wenham and the rest of the schools here, you know, that's an offset too, but that kind of gets into more of the details of when we start hashing out the agreement with apportionment and the
Yep.
kind of the way the money goes and how we're losing property tax on our properties, and they only have Bucher really. And then the other thing is looking at, you know, I don't know if MAPC has done any work with any regional agreements or consultants or something like that, you know, looking into something like that, you know, because there's other regional agreements in the state, and, you know, if we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we probably shouldn't. You know, look at some best practices from some other regional agreements, see if MAPC or another organization has something for regional agreements. The other thing would be to talk to our council to review the document. Also, we share town council with Wenham, so it'd be very kind of an easy pitch for town council to look at it. And then also, I don't know, Dana, if, who the school committee has for a council, but kind of all those kind of councils in the kitchen to look over the document and see kind of all the legalese stuff. To like Joe's point, a lot of it is really outdated and
Yes.
just needs to be reworded with kind of modern MGL kind of stuff. And then that can kind of be maybe even one of the first steps is just cleaning up the stuff like we do with our planning stuff. Just look at the document, what's legal, what's not legal. Then we start to kind of change the nuts and bolts of it after we kind of get the legal stuff worked out.
Right, we
Does that
kind of did
make
that
sense,
with
you
the,
know?
with the planning board a few years ago. We started with the easy stuff.
Yep.
The organization, spelling, grammar.
Right.
MGL, update, right, and then you go to
table of
more
definitions, your all that kind of
non-substantive, and then you
stuff,
sort of
right.
go from there, so.
Do you know, I agree with what you're saying, and I would like to add the point that looking at this document for legalese is a very sort of didactic way of doing it. I think we should start with an open question. What are our goals? What are our collective goals
Yeah, I
for the
think that's
school
good, too.
system? And I think that would help us to frame our direction. it seems that if we just look at this document, then we're not going to be thinking. It's sort of how we're approaching the master plan. What are our goals for the schools? Just off the top of my head, we wanted affordable, we wanted fairly distributed the cost between the two towns. We want to decide how many schools we need. So there's some things that we can not incorporate, but actually write into an agreement that may help us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Rosie. I think that, besides councils looking at it for the kind of updating the legal stuff, kind of in tandem at the same time, we can still be meeting with our subcommittee and talking about the common wants and needs with the document, and then kind of the negotiation begins, right? After we've got our overlaps from our wants and needs, and then there's Hamilton wants this, Wenham wants this, the school committee wants this, and then we kind of sit down and we have almost, like a negotiation process through it,
Yeah,
some kind of mediation.
what I got, I sort of wrote down three things, so it's sort of a three-prong approach. One is goals, where you just have to think good, what wants and needs, our goals, our vision is of the agreement. Number two is looking at similar
Right.
ones that are used in the state that may be a
Right.
good model. And the third one is just editing the current document.
Right,
And I
of
think,
course.
right, you don't want to get lost, you don't want to get lost in the detail of the
Right.
words. You want to sort of, but somebody needs to go through and sort of look at the
Right,
words. So
right.
I think I agree, it's sort of a one person's looking at the detail of the existing one,
Right.
someone's looking at wants and needs, and somebody else is looking at other,
Yeah.
other similar agreements. I think that's a good approach.
Yeah, and I would be happy to volunteer to research some regional agreements and then bring them back for everybody to look at, because even if there is some sort of template somewhere, I think each town, each district has particular needs.
Right, they're all unique.
So that I'd like to research some specific agreements. So maybe.
I would like to say that, we should be bold. Everything should be on the table. I don't think we should be afraid to talk about anything. And, nothing should be off limits. It should be kind of freewheeling, and we should really think about what we want, both as towns and school districts. I think we should really take this opportunity.
No, we want to do it right? So we don't want to rush into it. We don't want to kick the can down the road.
Right.
But we want to take our time and be thoughtful, and that's a word I get from Dave.
Right.
I want to be thoughtful with the decisions,
Right.
and so it's okay to take time as long as we're continuing to work on it, right? We don't want to we want to work on it. So I like where this stuff's going. I like to hear so Dana's here to sort of talk now. If you want to get up to the podium, you can kind of maybe give any thoughts you have and what you think. What do you think of our
Hi.
discussion so far?
I think this is terrific. I think just for clarity.
Sorry, just introduce yourself real quick.
Oh,
just
I'm
so
sorry.
people-
Dana Alera. I am the chair of the school committee. I'm at 70 Echo Cove Road.
Thank you.
So all of you, the select board all knows, but just in case anyone else is listening, just for clarity, as the chair, I cannot speak for the committee unless I discuss with the committee, and that is still an open question. So
Correct, yeah.
just for clarity.
Yep.
What I want to just reflect on and what I just heard Darcy, I want to just say I could not agree more about being bold and the idea that we want to start as we, even before we agree that we're going to dive into this, to just with the vision of dreaming big. What do we want? That doesn't mean that reality doesn't come in and that but if you don't clearly articulate to, I think, Rosie's point, if you don't clearly articulate what it is that you dream to get out of this agreement, you're definitely not going to get it. That really spoke to me. I do think it's really important to be thoughtful. Even, again, I will promise to bring this as a discussion point to the school committee. I cannot speak for them, what they will do, but I do think opening up a process. It's been, what is that, almost 50 years, right? So opening up a process is a bold step, and it also leads me to believe that it's okay to take our time and be really thoughtful and meticulous about this. So to sort of a little bit of the question that wasn't fully, I think, brought out, that, the school committee, we have a lot to do this year. That is accurate. But we don't need to kick everything down the road. We can because I don't, well, at least I don't hear from this committee, I didn't hear everyone say the first thing this needs to be done by November, but, you know, I didn't hear that. This might be a really long process. So I don't know if there's other questions that I can answer, or if
I think to your point, Dana, about the process and the timeline, I think it's been one of those things, I mean, I've been on the board 6 years now and been involved a little bit longer than that, and it's been kind of on the peripheral for quite some time, right? So now it's kind of to do it and to do it right, and I don't think there should be a timeline. I think there's a reasonable timeline. We don't want to spend 10 years on it, but I don't think we want to say 6 months or put a kind of a hard stop on it at some point. I think we really want to be thoughtful about it and do our due diligence and make sure all parties involved kind of come away from it feeling vested and good about all the decisions that are made. Because if we don't get that common agreement between all three of the parties, it's just going to derail. And so we really need to take the time and listen to each other and be meticulous about the document and kind of do it right. And if that takes a year or 2 years, that's just the process it's going to have to be.
Right, and it is, you know, I know that Joe has heard me say this before, and you just said it now, is that we're, you know, the important is that this document, but all the agreements we made, we're all a whole. Joe just described us as we're all a whole. We're not actually, in this case, three, you know, with Wenham, separate parts. We all have the same, though everybody does have their specifics, but we all have the same goal, which is success for our community. So, I mean, I think exactly that we're right, definitely not a 10-year process and not a couple of months either.
Dina,
Mhm.
I have a question here. To my recollection, and I may be wrong, but the agreement is between the school committee and the two boards of selectmen, is that right? So even though you were going to be diligently searching for a new superintendent this year, that should not impede our ability to initiate this process. Is that correct? Do I understand that correctly?
That's absolutely correct. That,
Okay.
and I think, well, yes, I think that's actually really important for people to know that, well, it's obviously a real challenge to, you know, to have a transition at the superintendent level, that we have lots of other things in place, and we have some strong leadership in place, and we have a school committee in place, and yes, that
Okay.
you are correct. that
Great,
we can
okay,
move.
good.
Yes.
Rosie or Jamie, any other questions for Dana or comments?
No, I mean, all those were good comments. I would agree that I wouldn't want to rule out the possibility that the master plan might have an impact on it because of the town, or because of the town properties and their impact on the schools. Primarily, what I remember. I mean, the other stuff about accountability and things, those maybe we could do without that process, but it seems to make sense. And it sounds like these processes will be probably coming to fruition at about the same time over the next year and a half or so.
I think that's a reasonable timeframe. I wouldn't like to see it dragged out longer than that. In my mind, and, you know, I can certainly be negotiable, but I think a year and a half is really a reasonable timeframe. It means we have to work, right? We have to work at it.
Yeah, right. Okay, so,
So, Mr. Chair, would we talk, I guess, tonight? I know we're not really making any decisions or just having a discussion, but do we want to talk anything like next steps?
Yeah.
Do we want to reach out to the Wenham BOS? Do you want to reach out to their chair and
yes, yeah, so,
see
yeah.
if they wanted, if you want to write a letter, just call and see if we want to have a joint meeting, or maybe we can just endorse it and they can endorse it and then we move on? I don't know how involved we need to be in the,
I can ask the town administrator tomorrow to bring it to the chair of the Wenham board, see if they.
And I'll reach out as well too, but I think, yeah, next steps are, is that we want to put it on our future agenda to vote, I think we can just vote, just to open it up, to kind of
Right.
just show, hey, this is a real thing, right?
right?
We're not just talking, so we can just vote, and then I think get together with Wenham and get a joint meeting with them.
Right.
And then we need to have sort of a whiteboard session on sort of our wants, needs, but I think it's once again, three-prong approach, right?
Right, so it's,
Talking to town council about just looking at the agreement and what their process is. Two is someone should be in charge of sort of researching and then the third one is all of us sort of working on and what that means for the 5 of us,
Right.
for a bigger steering committee, you know, that kind of thing, so.
Right, I would say too, probably just as far as process, that we would reach out to the Wenham board, get them to endorse it, we endorse it, then we kind of send it off to the school committee to see if they endorse it. Then we have maybe a joint meeting with Wenham BOS or some form of that. Then we kind of talk about what our ideas or wants, goals are. You know, I think there's two separate goals. One is, obviously, the main goal is to have a healthy and vibrant school community, right? And then the second goal is kind of all of our talks about apportionment and representation and finances and all that kind of stuff come kind of after that fact, so.
I would add that I think it's important for a joint conversation to revolve around needs of the school district. I think we get into trouble when we mix up wants with needs. I think these joint discussions should revolve around necessities, financial necessities.
Right, the kind of need to have instead of the want to have.
That's correct. I think it's imperative that we look at this realistically. One of our concerns has been that we're reaching beyond our means, and so I would like to limit that
Right,
to our needs.
Sorry to interrupt, Rosie, but I think to your point there, when we're working on our master plan, part of kind of what I'm hoping we get from the master plan is kind of an over-under on it, right? Here's what the town needs, here's what the town would like to turn into, here's what it's gonna cost to do that,
Right.
right? And I think if we look at that school agreement and our goals for the
Cost-benefit,
school
yeah.
as kind of the risk-benefit kind of
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And see if we keep doing these increases with the school budget, what's the breaking point, or what's the over-under on, you know, what the town can bear and what we need for the schools and what we want for the schools. So I think that's kind of part of the rolling
I think
conversation.
if what we need to agree on is what does a basic school day consist of? And that would be the non-negotiable stuff. That would be the stuff that every school has to have. And if we can nail that down, then maybe we can talk about other things that might be, you know, desired. But I think we really have to just focus on the functionality of the schools and just trying to get it right. What's a basic school day going to look like for these kids? And, you know, we should be able to find a way to afford that, however that works out. But that would be my basic thing, is start simple from the ground up. And then, you know, we can find common ground and move on from there.
Okay. So what I think next steps are is that we'll put in, within the next 2 meetings, we'll vote on opening it up. Joe, if you can circulate I know it was just recently you did, but if you could recirculate the latest comprehensive agreement with all the amendments to it. I know it was on a recent email, so if I can try and find it too.
I have it.
And then maybe we all come next week with sort of 3, or the next, when it's on the agenda, the next meeting, we look at calendars, but we come with sort of three categories, right? We all come with, just get ourselves thinking, we all come with what we think our goals are for the school district, what we think the needs are, and what we think the wants. I think it's okay to talk about needs and wants, but I think it's important to separate the two, right? So we all come with our own ideas of goals, needs, and wants, and then we can start to frame that discussion.
And I think that's a very good thing for the board to discuss as a whole. I think it's a critical issue, and that the entire board should be involved with that. And I reference the joint meetings we've had with the Wenham BOS and the joint FinComs. I found those meetings very educational and great opportunity to really think outside the box and come up with ideas. So I vote for as much of a full board involvement as possible.
We'll reach out to, Joe and I will reach out to town council, reach out to Wenham, and I'm also gonna reach out to our FinCom, just to let them know what we're doing, just to get them thinking about it.
Great.
Christine is here, so she can come knows, but.
Okay, yeah, Christine knows, so. All right, great. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to our conversation and help sort of frame our next steps.
All right.
Dana, just before you go, kind of a technical financial question. So your counsel for the school district, are they on a retainer that they could, or would you have to encumber more money for them to review with our counsel this document? Do you know?
So I would not answer that question confidently. Our current counsel is in the process of retiring, but she is not in, and she is going to do that gradually, so she is still with us. I believe that would cost, that would be an additional fee. Is that what your question?
Yeah, that's kind of my question.
Yeah.
Just kind of wondering if, for your budget and stuff like that, thinking about how much counsel would cost to review it with our counsel, so.
Yeah, again, fairly new to this position, but that is my understanding. So I could check that for you
All
to
right,
find
food
that
for
out.
thought.
And if I may, just, that I fully appreciate the conversation, but I am going to we discuss this with, even though I understand your process, which is to go to Wenham. But, on our end, I think it's good for
Yeah, I mean, I
everyone
guess-
begin the thought
Yes.
process.
That's why, yes, and that's why you're here, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Dana, because obviously we're gonna reach out to Wenham, and I'm gonna not put words in Wenham's mouth, but I'm gonna assume, since the last kind of conversations we've had with the Wenham board, that they're going to be interested in this. And my past conversation with Michelle, she knew it was a long process, but she was interested as well, and I think the rest of the school committee was. So if you wanna work in tandem with having your group work on an approval of a reopening of it, I mean, that would kind of help.
And, right, and
speed
just
things along a
logistically,
little
Michelle is still the liaison to the Wenham BOS, and so, there's a little bit of consistency there.
Okay, perfect.
So, all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. We'll return to our normally scheduled program and go back to the facts. So Joe, if you can help us walk through this. So first one is a reappointment of Board of Registrar Walter Lazinski.
Yeah, you have in your packets a letter from Town Clerk Corinne
sorry.
Kale asking for Walter to be reappointed. There's certain requirements for the Board of Registrars. It has to have one Democrat, one Republican, and then one can be either or, depending. Walter is the board's current Republican, and his term's expired. The clerk has reached out to the town Republican Party, as she was supposed to get input, and has not had any further input. Walter's interested in staying. She's asked that you reappoint him.
Walter's done it a couple times before, I think.
May I make a motion?
Sure.
That I move that we reappoint the Board of Registrar Walter Lazinski.
Second.
Second. We have a second from Sean. Any further discussion? Joe, I think the only thing I want to just put on record is that we've confirmed the process was accurate. So on all these things, we always sometimes we go too quick and we forget the process, but you've confirmed that the process has been completely by the book and we haven't missed anything, no steps, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So we will do, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Unanimous.
All right, so we have a unanimous reappointment, so thank you, Walter.
Yeah, thank you, Walter, for doing all these years.
Thank you.
So we had talked a few times about the cemetery fees.
Okay.
And where do we end up with it, Joe?
You had, Michelle Bailey's coming into the room. I'll let her in. You had asked us to check with FinCom, and FinCom met last week, discussed this with our new finance director, and I believe, Christina will correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they voted to recommend approving these as presented by the DPW director, but maybe suggest that we establish a regular cadence for reviewing these kind of fees going forward.
Correct. And we had talked about 3 or 5 years, so did we have a thought, where do we end up with that? Did we have a thought on that?
I think we should do it sooner rather than late, every 3 years, not 5. I think that would turn into a burden when people realize how much higher we've had to put it. If it goes up incrementally, people don't notice it as much.
Well, yeah.
Christina noted that they did recommend 2 years, but that's their recommendations was 2
The
years.
cadence
so-
And it's even better.
the cadence of our elections is 3-year terms. That means you would vote sort of once every term. We would all sort of have that cadence, whether it's your first year term, second or third year term, you would sort of,
You'd be in the mix somewhere.
you'd be in the mix.
I like a 3-year
Okay.
myself.
I think 3 is fine.
Yeah.
So I will entertain a motion to accept the
Can I pause you right there before you?
Well, I was gonna have a discussion after I made the
Okay,
motion, but,
perfect.
I accept the motion to accept the new cemetery fees as presented by, Tim Olson with a cadence of reviewing the fees, once every 3 years.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Second.
Second.
Oh, sorry, second? Second, sorry, Jamie, second. Any further discussion, Sean?
Further discussion, there was only one number that was a little bit off, and Bill, you
Oh, that's
called it
right.
out, was the number that, if
Four.
I can't remember what it was, if you
Four
bought so
plots,
many
yeah, it was a family
plots,
plot, right?
it was the same price as buying them individually, just, it seems silly, right?
Yes.
So, do we want to discuss $100 off, $200 off, something like
a
that?
10% discount or something like
Yeah,
that.
some kind of a
Also, the-
ratio or a dollar amount, just because it seems silly that if you're buying 4 to pay the same price as
Joe,
you
did
would
Tim comment
individually.
on that one or not?
He didn't,
Okay.
but you're right, that's, for grave lot is,
Right, it was
They
like
would- they would-
$2,800 or
28,
$700 or something like that a piece.
yeah, single lot cost is, and then the proposal, the single lot would go to $700, and the 4 grave lot would be $2,800, so they just multiplied 4 times 700, so, yeah. if you-
So do we want to talk a percentage discount or a dollar amount discount? I mean, they're kind of the same thing, but
Same thing.
I'd suggest.
half a dozen, 1 6 in the other, right?
Well,
2,400.
So you're getting
say like a
you're getting
10%,
one
I would
plot
say like a
for
10%
the half
discount.
price kind of a thing?
Like a 10% discount,
is that enough?
maybe $280.
Trini, I like Jamie's number better. For a family, it would be a family plot.
Is any other comments from FinCom? Did they have a robust discussion?
Christina's
on
here,
this?
if she likes to.
Christina, if you wanna, anything else that you guys thought about that might be interesting for us to hear?
Sorry, it's so dark, but no, we didn't discuss this at all.
Your vote, your sound is really unhearable.
Good word, Darcy.
Yeah, you're getting some static, unfortunately.
Christine, I guess you can nod your head then. Did you guys discuss anything on the multiple purchase discount or no?
I think the answer was no.
We can't hear you.
Unfortunately, yeah, we can't.
I don't think she
cannot hear
did.
I
you.
think she said no. She said
Said
they
no,
didn't
okay.
discuss that at all.
So then I guess, you said how much, Jamie? 400?
2,400.
It'd be $100 off per lot.
Yeah, I think,
2,400,
yeah,
2,500.
24, stick to your guns, yes.
Maybe you can hear me now.
Yes, yes.
Much better. So,
We did not discuss this at all, but I'm wondering why there would be a discount for multiple plots. Like I can see if they're, if you're selling something and it's less work for the person selling it, if somebody buys, you sell 2 instead of 1. But I'm not sure for the town whether there should even be a discount. But FinCom did not discuss it. And that was just a personal question that I had.
Well, I just have a thought. I have a neighbor who passed away about 2 years ago, and they had a family plot. And there are plots that won't be used in that family plot. So I think it's a courtesy to not charge full price for the 4 plots. Because a lot of times we know that there's at least one gravesite that's not used for whatever reason. And it's also 100% increase. And I know we haven't increased our fees in a long time, but it's sticker shock. And I would like to see us perhaps be more understanding of sometimes that might be a whole boatload of money for a family.
Yeah, that was my opinion of the discount too, was that when you're buying a plot, it's usually for an event. When you're buying 4, it's for future planning, so that money sits in the bank for many years before it actually has to be used or spent by the town. So it's sort of the discount is sort of you're buying way ahead of time for something that happens. I don't know, that was my opinion of it, whether that's right or wrong, but that's why I thought it as a discount, because you're planning for sort of farther into the future, but
Right, and you have to pay for it now.
you pay for it now, right? So versus a single plot, you're sort of,
Yeah.
it's for an event,
If
right?
it's for a necessity, right.
So but I think we're splitting hairs here. I think I think, for as many family plots, I think that we're,
Yeah, I wonder how many family plots we sell.
yeah, it's not a lot.
Well,
Not a lot, right?
If I could offer, the one argument I heard in your discussion that would argue against a discount is that, as Rosie noted, that, she knows somebody that has a family lot, and at least one of those sites is now gonna go unused. Well, we have a limited amount of space.
Right.
So if we're selling off lots at a discount to people who then might not even use them, those, now you're filling up before you're filling up before you've actually filled up.
Right.
And you're not giving the town the chance to recognize the revenue that will allow it to continue to take care of the cemetery. I think that if, a discount could incentivize people to, buy 4 lots now so that they can get it, and then if they only use 2, now it goes half-filled, and that means you can accommodate 2 less people down the road when we run out of room.
Yeah, that's a valid
well,
point.
that's not planned, I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm not saying it is, but
Sure.
people could say, oh, well, it's cheaper if I buy 4, so I'll buy 4, even if
Right.
they don't know if they'll ever use all 4.
Right.
Because volume discount shoppers always go for the.
Right, you
will
go to
always for the
Costco, you might
discount,
as well
so-
go big, right, I guess, or something.
Just an argument against it. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but you don't have a motion to amend it yet. You have a motion to amend, but not what the amendment would be to, so you
Right,
should finish
right.
that.
And another issue is, when would this go into effect? Should we have an effective date?
As soon as we vote it.
As we vote, I mean, I would say,
Immediate.
yeah. Any
Need to buy
future-
some
or any
plots,
future
Rosie,
vote.
before we vote?
I do.
Right?
This is what I deal with people.
Darcy, did you have any comments? I don't remember if you said anything.
No, it probably should take effect immediately, I would think. And we have to, don't forget, we've only got 500 spaces. And so if you're really looking long-term, we are going to have to think about where else can we go and how we will purchase that. So maybe keeping the pricing at a reasonable level, might go toward that goal. So don't make the discount too steep, is what I'm saying, I guess.
I'm actually listening to Joe and hearing what Tim was saying about he was just coming, this was not a moneymaker, this was sort of just to
Break even.
Yeah.
to break even,
Yeah.
right? So I think maybe we just even take the family plot off of the pricing sheet, it's just $700 per plot, and then that's it,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
no,
no, because then families won't have the comfort of being buried together.
No, they could.
Buy
they
the
could,
4
they just buy
at the
4
same
together
time.
at the same time.
You could buy the number.
It's just not
that-
in the pricing detail.
Pricing.
Buy the
You
exact
still
number
buy.
that they
I
think
think
they will need.
You could buy
I'm
1,
open
you
to
could buy
that.
2, you
I
could buy
think
3,
you
you could buy 4,
you could buy
5.
10 plots if you wanted
Right.
to, all in a row.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, not, but yeah, I think I guess if we have family plot pricing, you would think that there would be some kind of incentive. But if we're not gonna have an incentive for family plot pricing, we should just take it off of
Take it
there. It
off.
should be all individual. If you wanna buy 4, you buy 4. If you
buy
wanna buy
5,
5, you wanna buy
6,
3,
3,
you wanna
2.
buy 2, whatever.
Well, the other part of that is we are going to look at this again in 3 years.
Right.
So,
Why don't, here's a proposal, why don't we vote it as is? Cost structure stays the same,
Yep.
and in 2 years or 3 years when we review it, then we see how many family plots or 4 in a row that we've sold. And if there's a ton of them, maybe we knock $100 off of the group rate or something like that.
or we could vote the $400 discount on the family plot, and then we can see how many
Or
family
vice versa.
plots
I see
we
devil's
sell.
advocate here.
And we could revisit this in 3 years.
Is that a form of promotion?
Well,
Let's vote first on the amended motion. So what
Right.
is the motion?
What's the amendment?
We didn't have an amendment yet, we had
Yeah, we were
we had a
just
motion.
having a
$100 is pretty
discussion.
steep. Once again, Tim was trying to, he was just trying to, he was just going over like his hours, how many hours it
Right.
take, what's the cost, what's the rate
Right,
per
but
hour?
those costs are figured in, and we're not debating those costs at all.
No, I'm saying, but that's how he came up with the $700.
Oh.
So,
Yep.
right?
I thought he, no, he,
Oh, that was something else, okay.
Yeah, this is
The
broken down
cost
into,
for
that- the
everything.
lot prices are one price, and then the cost of interments and stuff.
right,
So.
We'll take a straw vote first, and then we'll make a vote. So Sean, what do you think the discount should be?
Sean.
If I were to agree to a discount, I would say 200 at the most.
For $50 a plot. Rosie, what is your straw vote, what are you saying?
My straw vote would be for the 700 per individual and 2,400 for the group of 4, and we would revisit it in 3 years.
Jamie, what do you?
I'll stick with the 2,400.
Darcy?
Yeah, I think what Rosie said makes sense to me. The singles at 700, is it? And it was 2,400 for the plot of 4 for a family. Is that is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. And we can revisit it again, actually, whenever we want, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but,
maximum 3 years,
yeah.
that's correct, yes. Maximum 3 years, but we can revisit time. So, Rose, if you can make the amended motion to the rates.
Okay, so I am amending, who made the motion?
I
Was
made
it-
the original,
I moved
Made the
it.
move, Sean moved it.
Okay, so I'm amending Sean's motion to make the price to remain $700 per individual lot, and for a plot of 4 would be $2,400. All other proposed costs to remain the same.
do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second from Darcy, so.
May I
Yes.
just clarify,
Point of
all
order.
other costs as proposed, not
Yes.
not to remain the same?
All
Correct.
other costs
So,
should be as
As
proposed.
proposed, okay, as
All those
proposed.
people's except for the family plot
Right,
would be
okay.
$400
Yeah, but
reduction.
to remain the same.
And are
would
we
mean-
voting on the amendment or are we voting on the whole
I'd
motion right
vote
now?
So right now, just to clarify, we're voting on the whole fee structure
Yep.
for the new proposed prices with an amendment on the family plot of 4 from 2,800 to 2,400.
Right.
And we're gonna revisit it at most every 3 years.
3 years, correct.
Okay,
Effective immediately.
and effective immediately
Right.
upon it.
Start hitting online right now and
All right,
before the meeting
so
ends.
all those in favor, any further discussion?
None.
All right, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We have a
Unanimous?
new cemetery fee structure
That seems
until.
Till further
July
notice.
7th, 2024.
1,000
Okay.
degrees in here.
All right. The next thing on the agenda is historic preservation restriction for First Congregational Church. So I think we have voted
So hot.
a few town meetings ago, the CPC got money to restore the steeple, and so we are now
Correct.
voting to reimburse them, Joe?
This is for the historical
preservation.
restriction on it.
Yeah, oh, historical, but this is part of the,
So I can give you a little background. The CPC, when they came to us for the grant, we'd previously restored the clock, and that was part of, I'm trying to think what year we did that. It's been a number of years now.
Years.
But we had a historical kind of preservation restriction on it then, which I think had run out, and we wanted to kind of renew and reinvigorate a historical restriction to make sure that they upkeep the property and stuff like that if we're giving them these funds, and it complies with all of kind of Massachusetts and National Historic kind of guidelines and things like that. So this was drawn up by council, and the church has agreed to it, and I think our process now is just us finally approving the end kind of fruition of all that document and discussions with the church and CPC and council.
Thank you, that's good explanation.
and so there's a document that we have to sign tonight.
Yeah, if you
We approve
vote to approve it, you can sign it tonight, and the clerk will notarize it tomorrow, so.
Has everybody had a chance to read the document?
Yeah.
And do you feel comfortable signing it tonight?
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
We need a vote.
I move that we approve the historic preservation restriction related to the First Congregational Church of
So a second?
Hamilton.
Second.
Sean, second that. Any further discussion?
So I just have one discussion. So who actually keeps accountability for that? Is it the CPC? Is it the Historic
Yep.
District Commission? Is it
It would,
Joe?
it probably,
Go to the HHDC now.
yeah, it would go to HHDC,
They also have to sign this document.
right?
So they would track the historic.
Yeah, I guess
preservation
I failed to
restriction.
mention that part, I apologize, that the HHDC worked, pretty much spearheaded this effort. The CPC kind of requested it, and HHDC figured out all the details, because CPC, while we do all these preservation projects, we're not really versed on the historic preservation restrictions.
That's good.
So they had quite a few meetings, I think, with that document in the church to kind of go over it. So they're kind of the responsible party for it. But I mean, anybody can really column on it, and then it kind of goes to HHDC for some kind of enforcement.
This has been signed now, Joe, by everybody except us.
No, most of, it's been signed by one member of the Historic District Commission, so if you folks sign it tonight, I'll leave it in the clerk's office.
But they've
to be
already
signed by-
voted to
They've
sign.
already agreed to sign it.
Yeah.
We're the last one to vote, okay.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion?
No?
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? 5-0. Affirmative. All right, the last thing on the agenda is we had tasked Darcy with going back to the diversity at workplace to get a plan together for our anti-bias sensitivity training and see if it was a good fit for us. So Darcy, if you can, and I know you sent out a updated revised proposal to us that I had a chance to read, so if you want to give a quick update on your discussion and your recommendation?
Yes, I met with the two principals, and that would be Amanda and Stella. I don't have their last names off. Maybe I do. That would be Amanda Martinez and Stella Okiki Common. And I met with them along with our human resources professional, Michelle Lee Carroll. It went about 30 to 40 minutes, I believe. And they seem like a really good fit. They are professional. They know their stuff. I was very impressed with them. And I think it would be a benefit to work with them. And I think Michelle Lee also enjoyed the visit, so to speak, or the interview. So they have a couple of different modules, and I think they suggested that we start with the unconscious bias training. And that's where I would recommend, if we do anything along this line, that's where we would start. I would take their recommendation. I believe it's 40,
It's on the slide in front of you.
$4,400 for
40,
90
yeah,
minutes.
thank you. It's so tiny in front of me, I can't really see it. $4,400 per session. In case people can't read that on the thing. It's a 90-minute session.
Oh, okay, let me get it straight. I gotta go.
Is someone,
Cub Scout program.
will I talk?
Yeah,
200
One
bucks?
second, Darcy.
probably not for everybody doing.
There we go.
Am I-
Okay, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, I can talk now? Okay, that was $4,400 for a 90-minute session, which with up to 35 attendees. So it would be just a matter of deciding, if we wanted department heads, assistant department heads. It depends on what we decide or who should benefit from it. And so that's probably something we'll need to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Darcy. It says, 35 attendees and then another 1,500 for each additional 20 attendees. I guess at some
And
point,
it's Zoom, it's on Zoom, so
Right.
it's going to be virtual.
and I guess before we get to that point, we should sit down and discuss who we think should be involved in it, right? Like you said, just department heads or
So
committee
Joe had an
chairs
opinion
or,
On this, Joe, about, you thought we should keep it smaller for the first session?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a recommendation
No, but
before,
opinion, right,
but Darcy and Michelle met with them. They felt that both Darcy and Michelle recommended kind of this approach. I think that with the 35 participants, one of the things is that, you could give us, kind of a ballpark of things. I think that you'd want to focus on supervisor level employees who interact with the public, and then probably, you'd have room after we got through that list, you'd probably have room to add several boards and committees that have a lot of interaction with the public, particularly on issues that would be around kind of this topic, so.
right, kind of all those
Yeah,
people that
I'm
have
in favor
touch
too,
points
like,
with the
if we're
community then.
Paying for 35, and it's a Zoom, and not all in the same room, like, let's maximize the.
I would think we would have
maximize
35 if
visibility.
it's
I'm
30,
excited
right?
that Darcy had such a great conversation with them. I think that's a great sign. And hopefully Darcy will stay on and help sort of put this thing together. So Darcy, what is their
course.
timing What is their timing right now? I think you said they were booking into September, October. Where are they right now?
I think they mentioned August.
Okay.
So what I would do is I would contact them tomorrow by email and ask them if they could give us dates, a number of dates that we could choose from, and then, bring it back to the committee, I guess, or the board rather.
Oh, if I could make a recommendation that you give Darcy the authority to kind of find a date that would work, rather than having to go back and forth between, because you won't have
Yeah, I
another
think that's a
meeting
great
until the
idea.
19th, and if they have dates available in August, she knows the dates of your meetings and some of the principal committees that we'd be looking to attract, so if we stay away from those dates, and they can find a date or time that makes sense, I'd give Darcy and Michelle the authority to kind of set a date.
Yeah, that's my opinion. My opinion is that if it's a Zoom, I don't think we need to worry about vacation schedule. People might be on vacation, but it's 90
minutes.
It's 90 minutes out of your day.
Right,
August,
you can
maybe
fit it
people have
in.
more availability in August than they do in September when school starts and things start up and again. So yeah, I agree. I think that if Darcy looks on our meeting times and we give her some flexibility, but I'm in favor of voting to move this forward for one session in August. If everybody else is in agreement, I'd like to take a vote on this tonight and keep this thing moving forward.
Yeah, I'll make a motion if people are comfortable with it. I'll make a motion that we authorize Darcy to engage in diversity at the workplace, and Joe, as far as finding a date and moving forward with our first session, a 90-minute session for up to 35 attendees in August, hopefully sometime.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So I just had a question. I think the organization looks good and everything, but so at the last time we discussed this, we had talked about it just being our board, and it being the possibility of it being in person. So I guess my question, Darcy, was that discussed or not? And I'm fine with the proposal as it is, but I just was curious.
You wanted to know if they do in person? Is that, the
In-person
audio
and-
on this session is really
No, sorry. Yeah,
hard for me to
Darcy.
hear, so make sure I understand. You're looking to see if they do in-person
Right.
sessions? Is
Yes.
that-
Hybrid.
In person was one question, and then we
They're
had
not doing that right now.
and then we
But
had
I can
discussed.
double check, but they did say that they're doing them on Zoom. So let me see what they say. If things have changed, I'll make a note of that and then get back.
So,
Zoom versus in
Jamie, I think on
person.
your next comment, I think it's a valid point. I think we had discussed doing it as like a sort of a team building event. So the question is, if we got together at, Patton Estate or here, and all of us still got together and did a Zoom call together, then after the Zoom call, we could sort of have a team building sort of strategy session, which I think might not be a bad idea if we can find a date that works for us. So that is.
Yeah,
I mean,
we could almost be in the same place.
could be in the same place.
Yep.
Right.
Right,
And we could Zoom with them, like we're basically doing now with Darcy in the
Right.
public, so.
yeah.
So I
And
think
then we
that.
could do team building for the
Team
board
building
afterwards.
after that, right?
Yep.
Zoom call hangs up, and then we're still in the same room and we can have it. So I like what Jan, and that was an important part of what we were trying to do here, was trying to learn and then team build at the same
Right.
time, right? So,
Right, and
And then-
I agree, in person is definitely my preference. I know it's not everybody's, but I think it really helps. I mean, I feel that us being together again, I feel that we're much more a team again.
right,
and
so if
that's-
we did like a 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe, and then we could have dinner afterwards or something like that.
Nice.
You just want me to buy dinner for
By
everybody.
dinner, so I mean, maybe that time, because it's 90 minutes, right? So you start at 4.
Bill's gonna
you go
cook.
from 4 to like 6, and then after dinner, and then we have have dinner together, and we can sort of talk. So maybe it makes more sense. You don't want to start too late and then have
Yeah.
That's right.
So I think maybe Darcy, that framework, and I'm not sure what their hours are, if they're limited by what their hours are, but
Right,
if
But
a
it's
late
a lot.
afternoon start would make sense, I think, for this
Yeah.
group.
yeah.
Did you catch all that, Darcy?
I think so.
I guess follow up with
Yes, I
Joe
will
if you didn't.
contact them. I'll find out what the dates are. I'll get back to you guys. And we'll go from there. We'll pick a date and have them do what they do.
And Joe, in terms of budget, $4,400, you have
Yeah.
on money to.
It's after July 1st. I didn't have to find anyway. It's in my budget for the new fiscal year.
Okay, great. All right, so we have to vote. So all those in favor of the motion of having Darcy and Joe negotiate a session in August with the diversity at workplace. Say aye.
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 Some of us have cookie work schedules, and I would hope that before we make the final decision, it would be.
It would make sure we all attend. No.
to everybody.
Yeah, I would say that it's mandatory that we find a date that all 5 of us can, at the minimum, all
Right.
5 of us
Okay.
attend.
Right, so Darcy, when you talk to them, maybe get, maybe get a couple tentative dates.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the first things I said. We'll get a series of dates and we'll see which ones work for us. And if we don't have dates that work for us, we'll ask for more.
Yeah, perfect.
So all
That's
those
all
in
we can
favor,
do, right?
say aye.
Yes, I'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, and all those opposed? So we have, once again, a unanimous 5-0.
See,
from-
team building's already started.
Look at that team
Love it.
building. All right, so let's talk a little bit about future agenda. I know that we've had some good sessions with Darcy and Rosie, and hopefully, Jean, you'll help me on the next meeting, set the agenda. Some things that I sort of, and once again, we haven't really talked about yet are goals for the year, but something I'd like to see on future agendas is obviously a town event. We started talking about it a couple weeks ago, but we sort of need to take it to the next step and talk more specifics. So I'd like to bring that on a future agenda so we can start talking about a fall event and making sure that we support. And I know it's some sort of downtown district commission thinking about doing like a block party, so maybe we can support that and show the town support behind that and help them organize that. So I want to get that on a future agenda. And another thing I want to, that we've talked about is regionalizing other town services. So I just want to get an update on sort of, if we can just frame the discussion of what we've regionalized in the last year, the pros and cons, what we learned from that, the pros and cons of it, and what other ones we should look at over. So it's a little bit of a history of what we've done, what we've learned from it, what the benefits have been of it, and then moving forward, what other things we might want to look at.
And I'll make a suggestion of one of those topics being the COA.
That's under regionalizing.
Any other topics, Sean, anything else that you want to bring back that we haven't talked about in a while?
Probably. I'll have to look at my list, but we should also start thinking about, and we talked about it, I think maybe last meeting was opening our warrant. I mean, it's a little early, but it's not that early.
really.
And whether we had that clear date from the school, we had looked at a couple,
The school
March
department did confirm the
23rd.
23rd, and I've already submitted the paperwork requesting the date, so we should
Okay,
be- we
perfect.
have that date.
All right, so opening the warrant, okay. Rose, anything else comes to mind that you want to bring up? Okay.
Yeah, it's something I've been wanting to bring up for a while. I would like to see the town institute a very modest tree replanting program, especially in the downtown area where many, many trees have come down because they've been diseased, because they're aged. And I think that's something that would benefit the town. We'd decrease the heat islands, not to mention the environmental benefits of trees. They clean the air, they filter the water. So I would like to see us embark upon that. And at this point,
There's a model, there's other towns who've done it and have a good model, so I think we have some
exactly,
things to
right.
go
When I drive down, what is it? Cabot Street and Rantoul Street in Beverly, I counted on Rantoul Street, 125 trees. And this was probably 2 years ago, and those trees, 99% of them are thriving, and I think that what that's going to do to lower the temperature and in that area of town. There's also on Dodge Street, I think I counted between 30 and 40 trees there, and similar number of plantings on Rantoul Street. So I think Hamilton, that has a background in being rural, being appreciative of the environment, that's something that we should really plan for. And as it is, with our gift from the Institution for Savings last year, the DPW director and assistant director have 2 trees to plant on Linden Street. They had they had promised those trees, and then there was going to be a delay because Linden Street was repaved. So they told me that they would get those trees this year, and I thought we could plant those 2 trees in the fall. But I'm wondering if that could be something that we could talk about.
Okay, that's a good one.
Joe, is there any, since Rosie's talking trees, is there any trees and stuff like that in our kind of next cycle of MVP grant stuff? Is that included in any of that, or not so much?
I can check.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of that's kind of curbing climate and lowering
Heat
temperatures and
islands,
stuff
that's
like
right.
that.
And they did specifically talk about a heat island being in the downtown area, so anything that we can do to help mitigate that would be great.
Has all the work been completed, Joe, from the grant for the downtown and the park and stuff like that? I know all of our curbs have been redone and the electrical was done downtown.
We have the materials to stripe the bike lane, or the bike signage on Willow, which is part of that. But
Joe, you take on the microphone.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry, yeah, I think the only thing that may still need to be done, but everything's been purchased, is the signage for the bike traffic on Willow to connect the downtown to Patton Park. But the intersections have all been upgraded, all the work has been done at either end. We have to install the bike racks too. We have the bike racks, we have to install the bike racks. So there'll be a new bike rack at Patton Park and a new bike rack at the corner of Railroad and Willow in the municipal lot there.
Yeah, all the curbs look great.
And-
They
and the-
do.
And the power was dropped from the top of the pole to the bottom where we'll be able to connect it, so
Oh, that's good.
we're in good shape.
Good.
Yeah, well done.
Jamie, anything that you want to add to a future agenda?
A few things. I guess we should follow up on the student liaison thing, and I guess that also brings up the land acknowledgement that
Right, that Everett proposed.
Sioux liaison, yes, that was on my court to work on that. And then obviously the flag raising is going to be something we talk about in the fall. Is what we plan on September.
Right,
Okay.
you've given the,
90 days.
Human Rights Commission till the fall, so.
Okay. And Darcy, anything else that you want us to talk about? Plan our-
Other than my usual harangues about ADA compliance,
Yeah.
and, other than that, there's probably, not too much. But can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we adjourn for the evening.
Second.
We have a second, Rosie. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? We have unanimous adjournment. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
We will see you.